And I want to emphasize that, in terms of physics, there is no good official explanation. Let me follow up on that statement, the official explanation. On April 11th of this year, I and a bunch of others, Kevin Ryan, Richard Gage, Scholars for 9/11 Truth and Justice, family members, thank you, Bob McIlvaine and Bill Doyle, we wrote a request for correction, it's called RFC, to NIST, saying, look, there are errors in your report. Would you please correct these errors? They did actually admit and correct one minor point. But here's what they wrote in their response letter to us. In September, they wrote back. We are, this is quoting the NIST letter now to us. Think of yourself as a family member or a scientist, and you're just hoping they're going to correct their report. We, NIST, we are unable to provide a full explanation of the total collapse. They admit it. They can't explain it. And they said, now, that should satisfy you. Go away. Obviously, we're not satisfied. We agree with them that they are unable to. Incidentally, we can explain the total, complete collapse using explosives. Right. Yeah, thank you. And you can read about, that is, our request for correction and NIST's reply are both in this Journal of 9/11 Studies. So you'll find it there. By the way, there are now nearly 100 papers by scholars, scientists, engineers, and others in this journal. And along with Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, I'm a member of that, as well as Scholars for 9/11 Truth and Justice, and a couple others, I think. But we're all working together, and with you, many of you, I'm sure most of you, are working together to spread the facts about this. I get this question raised rather frequently. In April, there was a section of a freeway that fell down in Oakland. And I had just recently an email, someone saying, well, there you go. This explains the tower's collapse. Well, no, it doesn't, of course. First of all, this is a partial collapse. You see there's an overpass. This is quite a complex set of freeways here, roads. And the upper one fell, but the lower one did not collapse. The columns below did not collapse. This is what we expect. There was a big fire. There was some damage here. The asphalt flowed and the thing fell, but below the structure held. This is what we expect in the towers. We expect the upper structure, if it starts to move, grant that, it could happen, but then it should stop. And again, in the Journal of 9/11 Studies, you read the papers by Gordon Ross and math professor Ken Cutler, you'll see this is our prediction. Using physics principles, conservation of energy, conservation of momentum, which is equivalent to Newton's third law. I won't go into explaining that, but it turns out conservation of momentum, third law, are hand in hand.
This straight-down collapse is the whole point of controlled implosion, which only a few companies in the world are qualified to pull off. Third, these buildings collapsed at virtually free-fall speed, which means that the lower floors, with all their steel and concrete, were offering virtually no resistance.
I had to put my friend David Ray Griffin in, and as he talks about the collapse of the building. Again, if you want to get up to speed quickly, I recommend this Journal of 9/11 Study. Here's some of the authors. Professor Griscom, Professor Griffin, Laurie Manuel has written an interesting couple of letters about the psychology of trying to reach people as you discuss 9/11. Kevin Ryan, Graham McQueen, and this fellow over here. Now, I want to draw a distinction. Another important, so we talked about partial collapse versus complete collapse. That's one thing. Don't let these guys that argue back at you throw this at you. Oh, there are lots of buildings that have collapsed. No, not complete collapse. None due to fire, except World Trade Center 7 supposedly. Wasn't hit by a plane, and the towers, all in the same day. It's quite remarkable when you think about that. There's another distinction here. Oh, but while I'm thinking of that, Kevin Ryan wrote a response to Mackey that came up in the question-answer period, and Kevin's response is in the Journal of 9/11 Studies. This was at November, I think we published that, yeah, if you look in the November volume. Now, there's a distinction between air or flame temperature and steel temperature. Now, when you light a fire, let's see if I can show you this. I actually have a piece of steel here from the World Trade Center. As I wrote this paper, it came out online November of 2005. I requested samples. People sent me samples. It was wonderful. I include dust. I'll talk about that at some length. And then this sample of steel from the World Trade Center was left over from a monument. There are several monuments around the world with World Trade Center steel in them. This was left over from one of those. So it just sent me a chunk, and I had a friend slice off a piece. Now, here's a flame. Let's see if I can get this to work. I'm not a smoker. They were showing me how to get this to work. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, now at the tip of the flame, it's very hot. It could be around 1700 centigrade it's probably butane, isn't it? It's around 1700. Now, the steel melts at 1500 centigrade. Is it melting? No. Is it likely to melt? I was hoping I could just have someone hold this for an hour. No, it won't melt, folks. The steel temperature is much less. Why is that? Well, part of the reason is the heat is transported. Heat transport, we call it in physics. Wicked away. The heat is wicked away from where the flame is hitting the steel and carried away. And inside the towers, you see this enormous heat sink, we say. So you could build a bonfire here. You know, go ahead, pile up all the office paper and wood and just set up a bonfire. It's not going to melt the steel. Now, again, it might warp it sufficiently so you get sloughing. That's what we say is fine. We understand, we accept that. But to have the whole thing completely collapse or to have steel melt, no, those two we rule out. And again, the distinction I want to emphasize here is the steel temperature is less than the air or flame temperature. Now, according to NIST and Eager, the maximum temperature of the fires in the World Trade Center was about 1,000 centigrade. By the way, in response to the question earlier regarding how hot were the fires in the World Trade Center? Well, I'm going to go ahead and quote that. This is steel temperature now. But let me, and I'll have some other quotes on the temperature, but let me emphasize that the smoke, we've seen it, billowing, we just saw it again, out of the towers was black. It was a dark gray or black. As pointed out even by Professor Eager, this means that these were oxygen-starved fires. This is not a blast furnace situation. Oxygen starves according to the data that we get from the smoke, the black color. Copious smoke and a dark color means cooler fires than the maximum. You saw when I lit that lighter, there was no smoke coming off. There was plenty of oxygen, not that you could see. So the steel structures, according to NIST, show no evidence of exposure to temperatures above 600 degrees centigrade for any significant time. I'll mostly use centigrade. I'm used to it. That means the steel temperature, all right, less than 600. Now, melting is at 1538 for this structural steel. And it plus or minus a little, but over 1500 centigrade. Now, quoting from NIST, and on this I agree with them, in no instance did NIST report the steel in the towers melted due to the fires. The melting point of steel is about 1500 Celsius, 2800 Fahrenheit. Normal building fires and hydrocarbon, and this is their expression here, e.g. jet fuel fires, generate temperatures up to about 1100 Celsius, 2000 Fahrenheit. NIST reported maximum upper level air, not steel, air temperatures of about 1000 Celsius, 1800 Fahrenheit.